really, I want to create the next 16 Chapel, you know? So welcome to my studio on the 71st floor of 3 World Trade. Really grateful to be working in this space. It always inspires me just looking out into the city. So I like to refer to myself as a multimedia artist. I've kind of all over the place. I went off on so many different tangents in my life, and I think nowadays the art market tries to pigeonhole into one medium or whatever else, but I'm still exploring. And so yeah, I create everything from artwork on canvas to large public art installations, and I work on a lot of creative new media. So I had a pretty unconventional path into the arts. I wasn't growing up planning to be an artist. I kind of rolled with the punches. Everything kind of felt very serendipitous, you know? Sometimes you meet someone that completely changes the course of your life. So there's a lot of moments of faith and opportunity that kind of came in early in my life. Having a gallery back me early on and to give me a platform to do solo shows really helped be a pedestal for my career. So having my first solo show was, it was really momentous. It was actually called Momentum, you know? And it kind of spoke to my philosophy in life and just how things kind of led me to that very moment. And being South Asian, it was definitely very validating, you know, just having my parents see what this was all about. You know, being an immigrant, it's like, it was hard for them to relate or understand the vision, you know, but when they were there with the room full of people, you know, who really appreciated my artwork, I think that was a moment that they were finally convinced. So I'd say no path paved is worth walking, you know? So for me, you know, high risk, high yield, and I'm trying to take my chances in doing things differently. So yeah, I've tried not to box myself in with just the work that's been selling. I try to always explore different aesthetics within my own sort of story and narrative. A lot of my story goes back into my trials and tribulations of immigration. I couldn't get a regular job, so like my first real job was actually street performing. And that introduced me to the elements of hip hop, from like graffiti to, yeah, I mean, now creating, you know, public art and whatever else. But yeah, dance was a big part of my foundation behind my art. A lot of my art is kind of inspired by movement. Whether it's like the pigeons flying above or the subways underneath, like there's so much movement to be inspired by, the hustle and bustle essentially. And I try to look at it from different levels, from the micro to the macro. And sometimes when you look back at it in a broader perspective, you see how everything just kind of moves like in clockwork, even though it seems chaotic on the surface. So for me, it's been interesting to sort of take that and vectorize that into canvas sometimes. And for me, growing up in Queens, there's always been it's a land of immigrants, and there's been a dearth of art, especially public art. So like I didn't have that sort of exposure to art growing up in Jamaica, Queens. So it's been really paramount for me to bring more art and expose the communities over there to art. So whenever I get the opportunity to do something in Queens, I always take up on it. So I had the privilege of the city asking me where I wanted to paint a mural. And I thought about where I'd wait for the Q30 bus to get to school when I was a kid. And I'd always be running up that hill to catch the bus. And I thought it would be cool to paint some Desi kids, you know, running up the hill there. So that was a really amazing opportunity. While I was painting that mural, I remember I was up on a ladder, and there was this woman in a hijab who was waiting at the bottom of the ladder, waiting to speak to me. And honestly, aunties have been the bane of my existence. So I was preparing myself for whatever she was gonna say. But when I came down the ladder, she asked me if I was the one who painted the mural at Queens Hospital. I painted this massive mural there because when she had to go to Queens Hospital and she was sick, she said it meant so much to her. And then when she found out that it was painted by someone Bangladeshi, that it just, you know, it was really significant for her. And for me, that was a really touching moment. You know, just I don't know. It just, I don't expect to be commended by aunties of all people. So I was working on a community project more recently, and they wanted me to do a workshop with some of the kids over there to brainstorm some ideas that would sort of help reflect upon their neighborhood. And for me, creating, you know, public art has been a really humbling experience. It's been a difficult challenge, dancing between fine art and creating public art. Sometimes it's a really pretentious world and space. But I always try to make time to create public art because I didn't grow up going to galleries or whatever else. But yeah, so when I was workshopping with some of the kids, one of the kids had asked me if I was the one who had like the mural at JFK, or the US Open, or some of these places, and I was like, yeah, that was me. And but apparently she told me that you know, they were learning about me at our school in our art class, which for me was like, you know, probably the most rewarding part of that experience of working on that mural. But yeah, like I guess in real time, sometimes I don't realize that like I'm out there just painting, but there aren't a lot of folks who look like me who are doing this type of work, So that's something that moment kind of made me realize in retrospect the significance of doing this kind of work. The most paramount thing for me is to really find something that can contribute or bring something to the table when it comes to the art world. So when I was first diving into the art world, I felt a little superficial with my endeavors, but I remember watching this documentary called Wastelands on one of my favorite artists, Vic Muniz, and seeing how he changed the lives of these folks, with his artwork, and they were involved in the process. And I realized the power that art can have in facilitating change. And so often, art is seen as this sort of pretentious purchase, that maybe does nothing for anyone in the world and is self-serving in that sense, Because like growing up in an immigrant household, we survive without having art on our walls, It's like Maslow's hierarchy. We were just trying to survive, So for me, I want my artwork to be an accolade of change, So when people purchasing the work can feel confident that it is helping people somewhere else. So for me, it's always been my goal to find a more circular system with the art market, So for the works behind me, I'm trying to really build a South Asian scholarship and a foundation. I didn't have a lot of opportunities when it came to education because I didn't have a social security number till later. And now you hear about DACA and a lot of, different legislature being under threat. So that's been really paramount for me just as an immigrant. I want to really be able to provide that sort of support and build a legacy out of that. I was all in, and every time someone told me, it takes 1 in a million for you to be the next Picasso, it was almost reassuring because I was like, okay, that's one less person getting in my way, So yeah, I just fully committed to this, and I did the math. I'm in New York, I can paint, why not shoot for the stars? So I wake up pretty early, around 6, have my morning coffee, try to hit the gym. I feel like, I wake up with an excess of energy. So to really put myself at level, I kind of have to exhaust some energy early in the morning. And I deal with all my admin, email, whatever else. And then I trek over here. And because I like painting by daylight, and a lot of the lighting in my studio is kind of situated by the time of day. But yeah, then I'm painting for maybe 12 hours a day. It's long shifts. I practically live here, honestly. So I'm currently working on portraiture that reflects upon South Asian heritage. It's a series of work called Lineage. But after I finish this, I kind of want to go back to my roots and experiment with dancing again, and using augmented reality to bring portraits of dancers alive. I have a million ideas and very limited time, so it's been difficult to sort of really commit myself to these different bodies of work. I know it's sometimes all over the place, but that's where my imagination roams. I want to add pages to art history, so it's been really critical for me to really learn art history, first of all, not having the background, going to art school or whatever else. So I can really not create anything that's derivative or regurgitated, so to say, producing whatever I really want to bring something to the world that wouldn't have existed unless my hands had painted.